I am a forester in California, a licensed forester at that, and I've been working with the reserve for quite a while, since 2003 to be exact. First as one of the work group members developing the forest protocol, the first forest protocol that was ultimately adopted by the state of California. And then later I worked with the reserve to develop the Mexico protocol, and spent quite a few years in Mexico. I worked with the reserve as a stakeholder member, just like all of the protocols at the reserve, they get built with the work group. Later, I worked as an employee, and now I'm working with them as a consultant. I live in Ukiah. But we're here today to talk about communities. One of the things that I'm going to go home with from this conference is the sense that integrity is important. Max was up here moderating the previous panel, and he spoke about how many times the word integrity has come up in the titles of these panels. And he's right. That's one of my take-homes. The other one that I think has come up a lot, too, is communities. And that's what we're here to talk about today. We have a great panel with us today. We have a panel of folks that represent communities. And we also have a buyer of credits who looks to communities and looks to qualities of how these communities are included in the project for what they find interesting and what they want to purchase. But integrity is often thought of in terms of the carbon itself, the additionality, leakage, permanence, and those kinds of things. But integrity can also mean in what we're talking about in terms of environmental and social safeguards. And that's what we're looking for today, is to talk about the integrity of social safeguards, particularly how our communities involved in the development and the ongoing management of projects. So who we have here today? We have with us Rosendo Perez at the end. Rosendo is with the group called ICICO, and they're down in Oaxaca. And Rosendo, can you explain what the acronym stands for, please?
Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation.
Just the acronym for
okay.
now.
ICICO stands for Integrator of Indigenous and Campesino Communities of Oaxaca.
Thank you. And Netzar is also here, and I'm going to go into more introductions in a little bit. Netzar is also with ICICO, and then we also have Jack Blackwell. Before that, Rosendo and Netzar represent communities. They work directly with communities, indigenous communities in Oaxaca. Jack Blackwell works with one community. It's the Chugach corporation, native corporation up in Alaska. So those are our community representatives here today. And then we have Dee Lawrence. Dee Lawrence is with Cool Effect, and I'll go into greater introductions in a bit. But I'm going to start with Jack today. So I just wanted you to know who's here. We'll get the further introductions on the panel as I call on them. I'm going to start with Jack. Jack is the Vice President of Lands and Resources for Chugach Alaska Corporation. They own nearly 1 million acres along the northern Gulf of Alaska. And the Chugach Corporation is participating in California's cap-and-trade market. That's one difference that we're going to hear about today. Jack is participating mainly with the cap-and-trade market. ICICO is working mainly in voluntary markets. But to Jack, what is a native corporation? I imagine a lot of people out here don't know what it is. And can you talk about, talk about your community a little bit?
Okay, thank you, John, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. This has been a great conference, and really excited to have been able to participate. Chugach Alaska Corporation is one of 12 regional Native corporations that were formed under the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act in 1971. And so, going back in time, if you think about what was happening in the late 1960s, oil was discovered on the north slope of Alaska, and it was determined that a pipeline would be necessary to transport the oil from the north slope to an ice-free port at Tidewater in Valdez. And before that pipeline could be built, it was important to address and resolve the Alaska Native claims. And so that was one of the big drivers for passing ANCSA in 1971. And so the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act provided land and money to corporations that would, village corporations and regional corporations. And those Alaska Natives were then enrolled into these corporations when they were created. And so it's important to note that Alaska Natives are the owners of these corporations. The ANCSA lands are owned by the corporations, and the structure is such that it's a corporate structure, and it's important to be profitable, but this structure also has a socioeconomic mandate to benefit Alaska Natives. So the Native claims, the Alaska Native corporations are essential for self-determination and intergenerational prosperity for Alaska Natives, and are the largest private landowner in the state, managing about 12% of the state. So the Chugach region.
Let's go ahead and put up, could you please put up the map of Chugach? There we go.
So this is the top right corner is obviously the state of Alaska, and then the Chugach region is along the northern Gulf Coast, and it spans along the northern Gulf of Alaska, including Prince William Sound, and then down the eastern Kenai Peninsula to Lower Cook Inlet. We've got about 5,000 miles of coastline in this region, and for over 5,000 years, the Native people have lived in this area and flourished. It's a traditional home to the Supiaq Aleut, Eyak Athabascan, and the Tlingit Indians, and we have over 2,700 members of the corporation. We have 8 smaller communities ranging in size from villages with a little over 100 people to larger, smaller cities under 4,000. So it's a fairly remote part of the state. And the federal government owns most of the land in this area. It's either part of the Chugach National Forest or Wrangell St. Elias National Park, or Kenai Fjords National Park. So initially, after Congress created the Native corporations, many struggled to try to adopt to the corporate structure. But today, 53 years later, many of the corporations are doing well and have become an important economic engine for our state and our economy. Chugach Alaska Corporation is a multi-million-dollar corporation. We own a number of businesses ranging from oil spill response to electrical service companies and heating and ventilation, and we have a diverse portfolio. But it's important to recognize that the profits are returned to the Alaska Natives in our corporation through dividends and other programs that are supported, such as scholarships, internships, cultural awareness, and as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. We'll be coming back to Jack and get more into the community aspects in a bit. Rosendo, I'd like to go over to you. Rosendo works with ICICO, as I mentioned. ICICO is a Mexican nonprofit, and he first worked as a projects developer from 2014 to 2020. And then more recently, he's been working as the International Relations Manager. And he works with the communities to make sure that all of the projects comply with the voluntary carbon market. And I want to add here that when we developed the Mexican Forest Protocol, really in the years between 2012 and 2015, it was Rosendo's father, Carlos Perez, who came up from Oaxaca for our work group meetings, which were about once a month. And he really helped to ground us in what we needed to put into the protocol, which included some of the safeguard language that we have today to make sure that the protocol was going to work for the communities. But to you, Rosendo, can you please talk about your organization? Please.
Yeah, as I was explaining on one of the panels yesterday, ICICO is kind of a special case in the Mexico context because ICICO is owned by the communities that are working with the Caribbean project. Basically, the communities have the decision to continue or to stop the project at any point on time, and they also take part into deciding what the organization will do for the year. And they have a very important role on deciding what the community will do for the year with the proceeds from carbon offsets.
Great. I'd like to go to Neskar then. Neskar is the president of ICICO. And Neskar, both Charlie is Rosendo's nickname, but Rosendo and Netzar are both members of the Capulapan community, is that right? It's an indigenous community in Oaxaca. And this is to you, Netzar. How many ethnic groups do you work with? And I'm going to ask Charlie to help me with the translation.
¿Con cuántos grupos étnicos trabajamos en ICICO?
Sí, buenas tardes. En Oaxaca trabajamos la ICICO. Bueno, yo represento al Consejo de Administración de la organización, que es integrador de comunidades indígenas y campesinas de Oaxaca. Trabajamos con 6 etnias originarias del estado de Oaxaca en 4 regiones, 16 comunidades. Rosendo Perez es parte del cuerpo técnico de asesores que organiza o direcciona el trabajo de estas 16 comunidades.
Let's have Rosendo translate that, please.
What he was basically saying is that Netzar is the president of the administrative council for ICICO, and he was explaining that I'm also part of the technical team for ICICO. We help the communities decide the activities that they will perform over the year, and we work with 6 out of the 13 indigenous groups in Oaxaca. He's going to explain a little bit more about the indigenous groups that we work with and the regions on the state that we are working at.
Thank you, Charlie. Netzar, ¿puedes explicar los tipos de grupos indígenas con quien ustedes trabajan?
Sí, claro. El estado de Oaxaca se divide en 8 regiones, de las cuales nosotros trabajamos en 4, que es Sierra Norte, Sierra Sur, Valles Centrales y Costa. Entre ellos están ubicados los grupos indígenas de la etnia zapoteca, mije, chinanteca, chontal, mixteca. Ahí es donde trabajamos. Definitivamente somos pueblos originarios y lo que nos compromete a nosotros es cuidar la naturaleza y convivir con ella, porque pensamos siempre en que permanezca ahí por todos los tiempos.
Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit of translation here. As I was saying, we work with 6 out of the 13 indigenous groups in Oaxaca. We also have presence in 4 out of the 8 regions of Oaxaca, mainly in the Northern Sierra, the Southern Sierra, the Coastal region, and the Central Valley of Oaxaca. We work with the Zapotec, the Mixtec, the Mije, the Chatino, the Chontal, and the Chinanteco ethnic groups. And what Netzar was also explaining is that the vision of these indigenous communities, since they are, as you will call them here in the U.S., First Nations, basically they want to preserve the forest, but also make sure that the environmental services will be preserved for the future generations.
Thank you, Charlie. I'm going to go back to you for a quick question. Can you explain a little bit about the history of land management in Oaxaca, in these communities, and how it's transitioned over time?
Well, it's a very long history. Most of the communities that we work with have over 30 years of experience doing forest management, and it goes back to the timing where the forests were concessioned to government-owned companies. And basically, these companies, what they did was they were pretty much just doing extraction of forest goods from these forests. And at some point, the communities decided that they were also able to do that forest management but with the vision of preserving the forest values and also making sure that the resource will be sustainable for the times to come. And back in '84, the communities started fighting these concessions to the state government. That's when the communities proved to the state government that they were also able to do harvesting in a more sustainable way. Some of the communities that we work with have up to 35 years of experience doing forest management, and they have transitioned towards owning community enterprises and also making sure that they diversify the income paths that they have for the communities. We have communities that have transitioned towards ecotourism, which will be most of the communities in the Northern Sierra region. We have communities that have transitioned towards offering or starting to create enterprises such as water bottling plants. And we have communities that are thinking about creating a more integral biodiversity monitoring program. I don't know if they will show the map in a little bit, but you will see.
Let's do that. If we could get the map of Mexico up, please.
You will see that we work with communities that share boundaries. And what we have done is that we have performed planning workshops with the communities that we work with. And basically, we have seen a lot of common challenges that they are facing right now. And we're trying to incorporate these common challenges into a local or a regional level strategy just to address these problematics and provide solutions for these challenges. And also we are looking into using funds from carbon offset sales to solve these needs that could be environmental or could be on the social side of things.
Yeah, thank you, Rosendo. Well, that was intended to give you a background of the communities that are here on the panel. Very different structures, one in Alaska in a Native American or Native Alaskan corporation, and then Rosendo and Nescar are working with indigenous communities in Oaxaca. Let's turn over to Dee now, and Dee, I'm going to introduce Dee. She's the co-founder and director of Cool Effect. Cool Effect is a nonprofit platform for trading high-quality credits. Dee is also the director and co-founder of a group called Proyecto Mirador, which has built more than 300,000 cook stoves in Guatemala and in Honduras. She's constantly working to ensure high integrity in carbon credits. That's what her mission in life seems to be, and I appreciate it. And she also helps to lead the High Tide organization and the Carbon Policy and Market Initiative. She's also on the board of the ICVCM, which you've heard a lot about today. So my first question to Dee, as a credit buyer, I know that communities mean a lot to you. What are you looking for?
Well, I think the first thing that we're looking for is financial additionality. Does the income from carbon, the sale of carbon, really make a difference to the community? In Rosendo's case, for example, the income from carbon is about 30% of the income in some of these communities. Yes, it makes a big difference. Well, that's our first hurdle. The second thing is we like to find out, where does the money go? And for projects that are very transparent about how they are using the funds, because buyers are sending quite a lot of money into these small communities. So how are they using it? So if we can see that there's a water project going in where they're delivering clean water to communities for the first time, or if they're doing some work in a health clinic, or if they're putting in roads where there were no roads before, or if they're spending 60% on the forest, which is really what we're paying them to do, to what they call cleaning the forest, which means getting the debris, getting the smaller trees out of the way of the bigger trees so that the bigger trees can grow faster. We really love, we like removal projects, and for example, in Mexico, the baseline is where they take a measure of the forest, and then they see how much growth has happened since in each annual year. And so that's also, when you start with something that's real, and then you measure it every year to see if it's still real, that makes a big difference for us. We also like to see that communities have a say in what happens. There's a project in Indonesia, for example, where the communities, there's 35 communities surrounding one piece of land, and they do have a say in how they get a share of the proceeds from the sale of carbon credits, and they get a say in how those proceeds are going to be spent. We love to visit projects because that's a chance for us to see, did the communities really turn out to see us? Did they know we were coming? Was our visit important to them? And in the cases where we're very lucky and we have great relationships with projects, it is amazing to see the turnout. People are so excited to tell us what they're doing, with the money. So that's pretty much the story, what we're looking for.
Through all of that, I know that you visited a lot of communities. Is there a formula that you look for, the secret to success?
So I think we really like transparency. So if people don't hold back, that they really share quite a lot about what is going on there. I would say in project documentation, for example, put everything in there. Even if it doesn't ask for it, we really love to know, what else is going on beyond what the Climate Action Reserve wants to know. We also like projects that plan ahead. So if they are getting an enormous amount of money, what are they going to do with it? And it's a lot easier to plan when you don't have the money than after the money arrives. So we like to see some plans in place for how the communities are going to use the funds. We like projects that are democratically managed, where the communities that are involved in the projects also have a say in how that project will be executed. It's also important because you don't want a community member to jump out of the boat and go to The Guardian or go to Bloomberg Green and tell them how misaligned you've been, how badly you've been treated, and to get that news out, because every investigative reporter in the world is looking for that story. It happened in Mexico. It happens all over the world. So we know that there are project developers in Brazil, for example, who will no longer work with local communities because of the fear of having the project maligned, either fairly or unfairly, in the press. So in order to keep, it's really important to involve the communities early and make sure that you have good solid vote and that there's reason standing behind what you're doing. And this is true. If projects are really democratically managed, then when problems occur, it's a shared burden and it's a shared resolution. And if projects also are really excited about what you're doing, your project is going to be super successful. So we look for that. In some cases, the majority of project income, and this goes back to financial additionality again. So for Mirador, for example, in Honduras, all the income from the sale of carbon credits is used to support the project. That to me also is very important because everybody who works on the project understands that and works towards a common goal. And we like individualized attention. There's one project that had 37 communities arranged outside the perimeter of the program. And so they broke them into 7 units, and then each unit had a project manager, so sent out from the project to actually work directly with the communities to make sure that they were happy. And I guess we also like private-public partnerships. And this is a case where the government actually might, so for example, they might put in a biogas digester. But what you're dealing with biogas digesters is not very pretty, and sometimes they break. So when carbon can come in and maintain those biogas digesters, it makes a big difference. So this kind of public-private partnership is also very interesting. And then finally, as a nonprofit, we appreciate transparency. We have transparency on our fees. We think it's very important for the community to know what we are taking as a middleman, what the buyer is paying, and then what they're getting on the other end. So we love transparency in all of its forms.
So thank you. So I heard in that transparency, democracy, that people are involved and there's a decision-making process that's understood. planning ahead and having a formula for where the money's going to go. We're going to come back and see how the communities that are here are dealing with those things, how they deal with Dee's formula. But first, Jack, I want to know how your communities are benefiting from the carbon program.
So, in our case, Alaska Natives are the communities, and they own the corporation, and we look at what we do today is just a snapshot in time. We're a forever corporation, and so it's important that our management actions are consistent with the long-term sustainability of our lands and the people. The subsistence and traditional use are vital to the long-term sustainability of the Chugach culture and people. And carbon offset initiatives help to support our long-term lands management strategies that provide an economic benefit to the people within this region, while also sustainably managing our land for future generations. This innovative forest management strategies such as carbon sequestration are able to provide financial benefits while still allowing for traditional use to occur, as well as protecting our cultural sites simultaneously. The long-term commitment and land management strategies again must align with our approach as a forever company to help intergenerational prosperity. In 2014, Chugach began exploring carbon sequestration and was an advocate for the California Air Resources Board to include Alaska in the program. We began developing carbon credit offsets in 2017, right after the sale of the Bering River coal fields, which permanently conserved and retired 62,000 acres of coal fields near the Copper River Delta, which is a very ecologically very important and significant area in Alaska, with large populations of wildlife, waterfowl, and also supporting major fisheries in our state.
Jack, before you go on, I think that I don't want people to miss that point, that those coal fields were within your carbon project, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and the idea when those coal fields had been valued and there were plans to exploit them, but so part of their, I'll let you finish, but I want to make sure people understand that what was retired within the carbon project that didn't get, nobody quantified the carbon benefit of this, was the coal fields that were retired through a conservation easement. They're never going to be exploited. That's a key point, right?
Right. Thank you, John. And that provided significant revenue and tax benefits to our corporation. So that was we look at that as a win for our people and our corporation. And as we manage these carbon projects, we also partner with one of our regional nonprofits, Chugach Mute, to help us with administer the carbon programs and cruise the timber and the forests. It's allowed us to hire 10 Alaska Native shareholders in this program to help us with that, which is another great benefit, and Chugach Mute continues to help us with administer our program. And then I just wanted to also touch on in 2022, our membership benefits were around a little over $26 million that we were able to put to provide the members of Chugach Alaska Corporation, help support our elders, and then provide jobs for members to work within our various businesses and business opportunities. So I'd also like to touch on that we've also been able to support the Chugach Heritage Foundation, which is over $32 million that helps support educational and scholarship opportunities as well as cultural activities. We're really proud to offer two cultural camps on Hinchinbrook Island in Prince William Sound, where our youth can come out and learn from elders traditional and cultural ways, and that's really exciting to see that happen. These kids to be out on an island in Prince William Sound for a week, learning about their cultures. Super cool. And then let's see here. I'd just like to also mention that in addition to supporting the community, our community, the Chugach shareholders, the region also has benefited from our carbon projects by providing economic benefits to folks within the region without the necessity of extensive resource extraction, thereby ensuring the sustainability of our corporate lands, helping safeguard our lands and the habitat that's really important for subsistence purposes and gathering and hunting and fishing and recreation. So,
Thank you,
John.
Jack. Rosendo, I'd like to ask you the same question. With the communities that you work with, can you talk about how they have benefited from the carbon program in carbon revenues?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Just because long before we had the changes that are now happening on the carbon markets right now, we were concerned that given the amount of money that the communities were going to receive, if there was no planning on what the communities will do with that money, that money will just go not to waste, but probably was going to be used in things that were not going to benefit the community. So we decided to start creating a series of planning workshops with the communities participating in the project, and we strengthened the awareness of the potential benefits from these type of projects, but also all the things related to environmental education and pretty much appropriation from the projects. We want the communities to be the ones who benefit from the project, but also the ones that are keeping the projects going on for the future. Just because for more that we want to be there in the future, we don't really know what's going to happen to the organization in 10, 15, 20 years. So if the communities have the ability to continue to manage the projects for the long run, it will be a win-win for everyone. The communities will get to keep the management of the projects, and they will also get to keep the proceeds from the projects. So that's on the social side, but also we have seen an increase of activities that are performed in the forest that prior to the carbon offsets were left undone. We need to understand that in Mexico, most of the carbon offset projects are with the IFM side of things. So basically, it means that communities need to prove that they are doing additional activities that will grow the forest at a higher rate than it will grow naturally or with management. So what the communities are doing right now is to increase the number of activities done in the forest in order to promote the growth of this forest. So it's creating employment at the community level, but also it's improving the environmental benefits that the communities receive from these projects. Basically, we have some communities in where they have been improving their biological monitoring strategies. There are communities that are very concerned about water capture and water provision for the community. And also they are doing things to pretty much cover those areas. So if I want to summarize, we have social benefits from this type of projects and also environmental benefits from themselves.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to Dee now and ask Dee the question, why do some projects get a bad rap for their community involvement? It sounds for me that so far that they're doing a pretty good job.
Well, they are doing a good job, you know. That's a great question. Well, you know, I think just as with everything, okay, there's good stocks and the New York Stock Exchange, there's good stocks, there's bad stocks. There's good projects, there's bad projects, and I think, you know, with the market the way it is right now, I think we're flushing the toilet on some bad projects. I really do. But I do think that, you know, on any market like this, there will be the good, the bad, and the ugly. So you have to be very careful. It's buyer beware, and you need to choose carefully, and you need to ask a lot of questions. I don't, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I think, you know, a single disgruntled voice can be amplified by bad journalism. You know, there are investigative reporters out there who want to get their next Pulitzer, and they think that they're going to do it and they're going to get a lot of clicks, because it's a lot easier to talk about the plane crashing than the plane landing. And if you say bad things about a project, you're likely to get 70% more clicks than if you say good things. So, for example, you know, we worked very closely with a communications agency, Browning, who put together a great letter called Voices from the Global South. And that did not get any play in comparison to the Bloomberg Green article where somebody blew the whistle on what was going on in Mexico. It's just so unfair. So I do think that happens. So I think a lot of times bad news has been amplified. It may be that project developers over-promised rewards to the community that did not materialize because the market did not end up paying the price per ton that they had expected to get. So if you're promising a certain amount of income to a community and then the market is not delivering the price per ton that you hoped for, you're going to be unable to deliver the quantity of benefits that you had hoped for. And then, you know, this happened in India. You know, I think you want to set realistic expectations as to when the payday is going to come. This process of getting carbon credits is no joke. It takes a very long time and very dedicated efforts on the part of a lot of different people. And there's so many moving parts, as you can hear, with these communities and jobs and so on and so on. So, you know, it may be that, you know, people are expecting to get money from carbon in 6 months' time, and money from carbon is not coming for 3 years. So I think you have to set really, I think, you know, that can also happen. I think also that there are some issues with contracts, and you know, when you take advantage of poor communities and you're waving kind of money in front of their face, there are some unscrupulous project developers that will promise things or write things into a contract that might be missed by an indigenous community where they're not really familiar with reading those kinds of things. So I think that's also another reason why people get bad raps. And I think sometimes I think people don't really value the contributions from the community itself. They don't value it. They don't put a numerical value, because people are giving up their livelihoods. If they were going to spend time in the fields, you know, harvesting their corn, and instead they come and work for your project, and you don't value that time, I think that can also cause real problems. So you have to be really careful about doing that. And I think you just have to remember that projects are not going to survive if you don't have the backing of the local community. So you need to do everything you can to get them in the boat. So.
Do you have any immediate thoughts on how we can do better to avoid the problems that you just mentioned?
I think there could be guidelines for people who are thinking about, for communities that are thinking about involving themselves in carbon credits. And I don't know if that's something that CAR could provide as a, you know, this is what you should look for in a project developer. This is what you should expect when you're dealing with somebody. This is what you should look out for. Because I think those things are beginning to shake themselves out, and there's quite a list that people should be concerned about. So I think guidelines would be really helpful.
So Dee, as a buyer, she mentioned, again, I'm repeating some of these things: transparency, planning, involvement from the community, a democratic process. Now, Charlie, I'm going to take that filter and put it to you. How are you doing? How are these communities involved, and how does the money get distributed? How are those decisions made with your communities?
Okay, to be able to answer that question, John, we need to understand two things that will give us context. On one thing, Caribbean Project was born in the year 2000. It's one of the most long-standing projects in Mexico, at least. At the beginning, it was using a CDM methodology, but later in 2017, 2018, the market just crashed on CDM. And we were looking towards migrating to a standard that will enable us to sell not just on the national level, but also on the international level. And on the second point, we are very lucky because we work with communities in Oaxaca. Oaxaca is one of the states in Mexico that is known and very rewarded for their social governance in the communities. So basically, the internal governance of the communities is very, very strong. And from the beginning, with the lessons learned from the Mexico voluntary market back in 2008 when it started, we were pushing for transparency, involvement of the communities, enabling the communities to do a good decision-making process, and also educate them for the future, not just for the future of the project, but also for the future use of their proceeds from the sales. The good thing is that the Mexico Forest Protocol, developed by CAR back in the day when you were part of the team, John, it included a lot of social safeguards and environmental safeguards that made the job easier for us. And as you pointed out, Carlos was also helping on developing those social safeguards. And the other thing that I will add is that ICICO is community-owned. So our vision has been always to provide the most benefits to the communities and enabling them to pretty much participate during the whole process. This ensures transparency, and also it gives more value to the involvement of the people participating in developing the project. So basically what we want to do is people to be involved, to be aware of what's going on, and to be able to decide if something is convenient for the community or if it's not convenient for the community, and make decisions based on those values. And we give a lot of weight to the communal decision through the community assemblies. And basically we just give the information to the assembly, and the assembly is the one that decides if this information is it's going to work for them, or if they need to make some changes on the things that they are doing in order for the community to be benefited. And then we also have a very, very strong participatory process with the communities. So what we want to do is to reduce the risk of, as he was pointing out, just someone going rogue and telling a story that doesn't necessarily reflect what's going on field. So basically, we want to cover all of the possible risk areas and try to develop a project that will involve the community on its whole, but also that will be transparent and will be moving forward strongly in the future.
You know, I think that a real quick question back to you, and if you just take a moment to respond to it. You know, working with Mexico and working with the protocol, there's the ideals that are expressed in the protocol, and then there's the reality. I mean, how are women involved? In some of these communities that you're working with, you know, there's different language. They still speak their indigenous language. How are they reached out to, and what language do you discuss these, you know, financing and where the money's going to go and all that planning? How do you deal with those obstacles? And then one other obstacle real quick, not to add too many, but you know, in these comunidades in Oaxaca, there's members in the community, and then there's other people that live there that aren't members, that aren't part of the voting membership. So they're part of the broader community group. Can you just briefly touch on that? How are they affected by these decisions?
Okay, there are a lot of things there. If you asked me the women's question like 2 or 3, maybe 5 years ago, I will be very nervous just because back then there was not a lot of involvement of women. But luckily we have seen women being more involved in the processes from the same community, and this has been very, very organic, which is good for the projects because you're not forcing something. The community is already assuming that the women will have to participate in the processes. So we have seen a lot of participation. We have at least 3 communities that rely heavily on women's participation to develop all the processes. We have, I think, 4 project coordinators that are women. And regarding communication, it's always tricky. We need to, and I was explaining this yesterday, sometimes we need to oversimplify some of the concepts and some of the information in order for the community to understand what we are trying to say. Sometimes some of the information is getting lost into translation just because you cannot oversimplify everything. Sometimes you need to assume that the community will understand what you're trying to convey, the message that you're trying to convey. But we try our best to use like everyday examples for them to understand what we are trying to say and if it's going to be good for the community or not. And that's something that we also enforce. If the community feels like it's not something that it's valuable for them, we don't push anymore. We pretty much just leave the community to do an organic process. And if they decide that they want to participate, even with the caveats of doing the forest, the carbon offset project, we try very hard to create more awareness, but also to educate the people into understanding all the concepts regarding carbon offsets. And also the Mexico Forest Protocol requires you to prove that you have done workshops with the communities in order to understand this. Mm-hmm. So we use those spaces to explain a little deeper how the carbon offset projects are set up and how the protocol will help them.
So there's a process.
Yeah,
but sometimes it's rough.
Yeah, it is.
Jack, I'm going to ask you the same thing. Getting back to the filters that Dee laid out for transparency, for inclusion, for decision making, all those same things. Can you talk about how you work through those with your community?
Sure. It's as I'm listening to the discussion here on the panel, it's like I hear transparency, I hear education, and common themes that we've heard here today. And the decision for Chugach Alaska Corporation to participate really required a lot of education for our members to understand what exactly the carbon programs, sequestration, what that's all about. So there was an educational effort. Ultimately the decision to participate was decided by our board of directors, our 9-member board that spent a lot of time carefully analyzing and reviewing information. And so after thorough analysis, our board adopted an approach and has been very, which has been very positive to our members, and so it's exciting to see, how the process went from being an idea to reality, and then to see the benefits that came forward with that. It's also exciting to see other Alaska Native corporations that are participating with the CARB board and on the voluntary compliance as well. So it's neat to see this extending to not just one region in Alaska, but to other regions. And so, again, going back to our transparency, when we first participated in this. We issued a press release to help share this message. That resulted in a lot of inquiries back to Chugach. We're also excited. We also see the state of Alaska recently adopting carbon capture and sequestration plans and developing our state's plans to participate. So communicating, our program, continuing to communicate this with the members, I think is really, really important, and we continue to tell the story. We're excited to be able to share our story with a broad range of groups, including this participating on this panel here today. So I think I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Just get a sense, are there any burning questions out there that someone may have for our panel? Sure, let's go ahead and take a question here.
Yeah, hi, I'm Roy Phelan with Donate a Tree to the World. I just wanted to get a feel for, because I heard in a session yesterday that the revenues don't start coming until a couple of years after you actually start the project. Indigenous communities aren't known for having a lot of extra money laying around, so how do they get the financing? How can they, how do they get these projects up and running to cover those first few years when there's no revenue?
I imagine that both of you have a response to that. Why don't you try and say so in just about a minute or so?
Okay, I will start. We were very lucky. We had funding from USAID. Basically, we got funds for the first 3 projects. I mean, the state government, the state of Oaxaca government was involved at the beginning, but as with every other government, at the end, when it was time to match the funds that USAID was giving us, they pretty much said that they didn't have enough funds to do that. So we had to swallow that pill and use the revenues. I mean, with the permission from the member communities of the organization, we had to use part of the revenues from the carbon offset sales to pay for the development of the following projects. And with help of very good buyers that we also have, we managed to get some additional funds to do more development of other projects. So basically, that was.
And Jack, can you talk about how your project was financed?
Sure. I think that as I mentioned earlier, we look at our management approach as being long-term for the sustainability of our lands. And so as we evaluate opportunities, we recognize that we're in this for the long haul, and we may not be able to weren't going to just flip the switch and see a revenue stream immediately, but it was kind of a longer-term approach to our land management.
And Dee, maybe I can ask you the same thing. Do you get involved in finance to help develop projects, or do you come in after they're developed?
I would say, well, we've done both.
Okay.
But finding the investment, or finding people who are willing to make an investment, or companies that are willing to make an investment, among our customers that we work with, that has not really been the case. It's been much more interested in spot. But I do understand, that in the market now, especially for nature-based solutions, that there is real interest in providing backing. But unfortunately, I just don't know who those people are. We have done some early stage investment in mangroves, for example, in Mexico, for example, and some other things. But it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare.
Any other questions? Okay, in the back.
Hi, thanks very much. Alex Hanafi with Pollination. And just wanted to ask a question about the resources available for both communities and buyers out there in the marketplace in order to be able to kind of translate some of these benefits into the value of the credits that are out there in the market. And I'm wondering if you have any kind of suggestions for how these benefits that you're all describing up there could be better captured in the price of a credit. Because some of the research that has been done out there suggests that there maybe isn't enough education out there among buyers about how important this stuff is and how it's valuable and should be paid for in a premium, right? So the term carbon credit almost doesn't really capture what is the full range of value that's being created by these projects. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about how that transformation can happen, where we're really scaling up the understanding of the value of these, some people call them co-benefits, but they're more than co, right? They're fundamental to these communities. Is there a way to capture that more, and what kind of education needs to be done in the marketplace to help elevate that value and get it in the credit price? Thanks.
Well, I think, again, I think we could expect a response here from multiple parties, but Rosendo, I want to go to you and see if you can answer that. How do you communicate your story? And then I'm going to come to Dee and say, how do you evaluate your price? How does that affect what you're buying?
Well, I will have to recognize that it's something that we are kind of weak on that. We are weak on that side. I think that we need to start learning how to report better the co-benefits or the additional benefits that this type of projects have. And this is a criticism to the market. I think that there is not a huge number of buyers that will be willing to pay the extra price of having these benefits added to the carbon offset. Most of the buyers are just interested on the offset by itself. And we will love to have buyers that are interested on having these additional benefits that are fundamental, as you already said, to the carbon offset, but also recognize that the communities have a very important role into making sure that this is happening.
So Dee, is that how it works? Is that as a buyer, you want to buy credits where they're meeting those terms of transparency, involvement, et cetera, but it doesn't affect the price. If they don't meet it, maybe you don't buy it. How does it work for you?
Well, this idea of monetizing the co-benefits, I wish. Buyers are buying a metric ton, removed or avoided of CO2 equivalents, and the co-benefits are the gravy. So it makes buyers trend towards those kinds of projects that also offer the co-benefits alongside. But so far they haven't been monetized. But it may be because they haven't really been proven. For example, I think the gold standard tried to monetize health benefits a while ago, and the process for qualifying for health benefits was so onerous. I mean, it was just enormous. It was equivalent to what you would have to do to get a carbon credit. So it didn't go well. Nobody picked it up. But I think, the ICBC, and one of the things they're talking about now is putting tags on things and also trying to identify or provide proof or provide a mechanism for proving the various co-benefits that projects can claim, and then attaching a tag to it. And hopefully that tag might translate into a higher price. But so far, we haven't seen it. And buyers have been very lucky. They've been getting the co-benefits for free, basically.
And up here on the panel with our community members, remember that we have one community member that sells into the voluntary space and another community member that typically, I think you're just selling compliance credits, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a different game there, I think. I mean, you still want to talk about your benefits, but the price of a credit is the price of a. Tell me if I'm wrong. Is it?
So we have also been approached by a company that's interested in voluntary credits as well, and I think that gets back to the point of having in this case the business that approached us recognizes the benefit that to Alaska Native people. So. They would like to be able to share that with as part of their story. So I think there's no doubt that could talk more about the benefits and maybe share examples of the positive. Dee mentioned negative publicity earlier on, and it's tough to maybe sell the positive message too. But I think there's certainly room for improvement.
So we have a minute left. Is there another question out here?
Thank you all for the presentation. I'm Dylan Miner with CARB. I work in a different sector generally, but I'm curious on governance issues, whether you see any challenges managing the forest management practices along boundaries of jurisdictions. I know that you were saying that you have multiple different territories that butt up against each other. So just curious about how you navigate the boundary lines for communities that are receiving credits versus those that might not be in a program yet.
Okay, I think that question is pointed at me. Well, again, and I will come to the fact that we are working in Oaxaca. Oaxaca is very renowned for its internal community governance. Communities are very respectful from the boundaries of the other communities. So usually they even do like tours around the boundaries just to make sure that they are not doing things that will not benefit their neighbors. It's not common across Mexico. I think that in the central parts of Mexico, that's a huge problem because you can find communities that are harvesting forest actually on the territory or the land of other communities, and that's it's very problematic. We usually try not to work with communities that are doing those practices, but that doesn't solve the problem. And I think that it's, one of the part of the problem is on the cultural space. When the social fabric has been lost or damaged, it's kind of difficult to cover the culture or to recover the cultural aspects of owning the land. That's challenging just because there are a lot of things involved to that. And the other side is the law enforcement that the government does. And again, I think that we are in a very, very, I will say, a very different space in Oaxaca, but that doesn't mean that those problems exist, and it doesn't take away the fact that there are areas in Mexico where that is an issue.
Well, we are at time. I think we could go on with that point, but I think we're at time and we have to respect that. So thank you very much to all of you. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. And how about a round of applause for the panelists? Good job.